Uh, Hello there. Uh, Hi. And this is Matz, the creator of the Ruby language and the keynote speaker of this conference. Uh, so the pandemic has several side effects. One of them is, I have less chance to speak in English, so that I have never had a chance to visit the other country like Europe and the United States, so that I have less chance to speak in English, so that my ability to speak in English is getting worse and worse. So that uh, next 45 minutes, so that I try to give you the better explanation in English, but you have to stand. I'm sorry. Anyway, this year I'm going to talk about the MythBuster. But before that, let me talk a little bit about the kind people in the internet. I have been using internet for long time, probably more than 20 years. And there are so many kind people in the internet. Actually, too many of them. And for example, at the very early stage of the developing Ruby, that I got the email that says Ruby is too good to be a scripting language. In that mail, so that he claimed that scripting language for the scripting languages, programming language for the software, the script, which is mostly less than 100 lines. So that Ruby is too good to be a scripting language. Yeah, okay. But in fact, that kind of the power or goodness of the Ruby as a programming language makes us, happy and productive. So that it couldn't be too good to be the programming language or scripting language. About similar time, I got email. The scripting language do not need object-oriented programming. But back then, the scripting language, for example, in say the Perl, which was still in version 4, was not object-oriented. And then the Python was a newcomer, and which has the object-oriented programming, but those newer programming scripting language are less popular at that time, and he thought the scripting language did not need to be object-oriented programming language. Yeah, but I think we proved he was wrong. Before Rails, we struggle to find the killer application for the Ruby language. So that at that time, many people told me no one used Ruby, and then they used Perl, PHP, Python, or whatever languages other than Ruby. Or there's no killer app in Ruby, they claimed. Or this is a nice one. You shouldn't have created Ruby. We should focus on Perl for the sake of the human being. That if we concentrate our effort to the existing language like Perl, and then not waste our effort or power to developing new languages, so that we could have better Perl, better programming language, and that serves human beings better. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Or some people claim that Ruby is slow. Or this is recent ones. Web age is over. Web age is over, and we have artificial intelligence, machine learning, or even Web3. So that in those hotspot, the Ruby is not really popular in the domains. So that Ruby is over, or Ruby is dead, or Ruby is dead every year. Uh, or Ruby is not their favorite language, like Rust, Zig, Go, Python. Okay, they irritated me. Not because they insult Ruby, they said they told me bad about Ruby, but because they are not fair. In Japanese proverbs, the Tora no I o karu kitsune, which is the fox that borrows the authority of a tiger. And that if someone who created the language, like Guido who created Python, or the Larry Wall who created Perl, claim that their language has better aspect of Ruby, and they're comparing those two languages, and this is good, this is bad. We have trade-offs, and then the exchange of the ideas, and to create better programming language in both sides. Okay, that's okay, but most of them create just the audience. They're just a third party, just try to, irritate me. That kind of attitude irritates me. Being majority, for example, being as a member of the, say, the Python community or Rust community, does not make them superior. Okay, the point is we have to seek the real value. We find out the most values end with Y. Ruby is a value, and the productivity is community and joy and money. All of them end with Y. This is the site which is the top Ruby companies, which is created by my friend. This is the list of the Ruby companies sorted by the total value, total market cap value. The top ranking as a market value is the Airbnb. The second is Shopify, Square, Coinbase, Zendesk, and a few lines before that, GitLab, the Procore, On Running, Cowpa, Monday, Braze, the list goes on. Those companies are 60 billion US dollars value, and this, at least part of them, for Shopify, the almost all of them are created by the software or services written by Ruby. Okay, we are creating huge amount of market value. Okay, this is another list. Okay, this is a the 50 software companies sponsored, helped by the Y Combinator. Then we have many software companies sponsored by the Y Combinator. And then the top of the list is Stripe and Cruise, Airbnb, DoorDash, Twitch, Instacart. And then some companies use Ruby, others use Python, C++, and the other technologies. But for statistics, 13 companies out of 50 are using Ruby. It is 26%. But as total valuation, 52% of total valuations are from Ruby companies. That is incredible. That is incredible. So that, yeah, we can ignore those noises from the internet. As long as we create value, we create value. So that we can just ignore the noise and keep moving forward. And then I believe the best part of Ruby is velocity. Velocity of development. Well, we can say productivity. The velocity also ends with Y. And not only higher productivity, it means the quick to deploy. If you have a task to solve, if we can finish earlier, finish quick, that is value. And that kind of the quick solution and solves most problems. That quickness is the very good aspect of Ruby language. And the Ruby is right now is the top popular programming language. I know that. I admit that. But the popularity comes and goes. We should not dangle in the wind. Okay, in 2010s and 2020s, the static typing is a cool kid. The most popular programming language, Rust, Go, Kotlin, Swift, whatever, or TypeScript. And even Python and PHP has type annotations. But back in 1990s and 2000s, the dynamic types of programming language Ruby and Python and Perl, those are cool. Those were very cool programming languages. Those programming languages are pretty hot programming language in 2010. But these days, JavaScript has the dialect with type annotation, which is TypeScript. PHP adds type declaration to the language. Python adds type annotation to the language. So should Ruby add type annotation or even type declaration to the language? I don't think so. Because we have several misunderstandings or even myths around static typing. The first myth is the static typing is newer. The newer programming language like Rust is very popular on the static typing. And then, the functional programming languages like Haskell or Camel has static typing. And then they are very popular recently. But as a fact, the static typing is even older. Remember that Fortran, the world's first programming language, is statically typed. And static typing is even older than dynamic typing. The second myth, static typing is better. This is kind of the controversial. As a fact, static typing has several trade-offs. Let me explain. Okay, static typing has so-called pros, like a comprehensive checking. The we find okay, we find type errors in compile time, so that without executing comprehensively, so that this is very good things. And then the type declarations works as documentation. So the programming language like Haskell, so it has the very strong type inferencing. But as a convention, the Haskell programmers write down the types of arguments and return values because those declarations work as documentation, which is consistent with the programs. Okay, Ruby programmers, of course, write inline documents like docs and yard, but they are fundamentally comments. So that if we are too lazy to update the yard document, that could be inconsistent with the actual methods or functions. So but as a type declaration is part of the program, so that there's no chance to be inconsistent. That is good aspect. And when we have the type declaration, type information from the programs, that we can provide the better ID support, like the code completion or the documentation pop-ups, or the refactoring, also the many things. And in addition, by using those type information, the compilers can optimize software better using those information, so that the static typing helps better performance. And I admit those are true for most of the compilers. But at the same time, the static typing has some drawbacks. For example, basically the type declarations are verbose, and it's against the conciseness, which is the good aspect of the programming language. And it's basically redundant because the Ruby does not have type declaration, but we as a community experience the writing software without type declaration. So that fundamentally those type informations are redundant. So it's kind of against the dry principle. And then some type declarations could be very, very complex, and some people prove in their papers, so that the type declaration of some languages like C++ or TypeScript are Turing completed, which means that you can write down arbitrary algorithm in type declaration. So it could be, tremendously complex, which is, far beyond our understanding. So that, a few days ago, I saw the YouTube videos that shows the solving the tic-tac-toe in the type declaration. That when you write down some kind of the tic-tac-toe pattern in the type declarations, so that the type completion in VS Code shows the the black wings, or the red wings, or something like that. that is kind of insane. So that kind of the type declaration can be very, very, very complex. And then and I'm a bit worrying about if we adapt the type declaration to Ruby languages, we might see the type policing in Ruby community. We have some experience in the other programming language, like some gem authors or some library authors had claims that your library should have a static type declaration, or otherwise your library is pretty bad, or something like that. That is not, that makes the atmosphere of the community very, very, peaceful. Yeah. So do we really need type declaration? Yeah, we admit static typing or static type information has those benefits I described before, but do we really need type declarations despite those drawbacks? Okay, static type checking is good, I admit, but we don't need declaration to check. That is why I introduced the Ruby 3 static typing, which is the static typing without type declaration. The typing information in signature files, which we call RBS, Ruby signature. And then, in addition, we introduced the Ruby gem RBS correction, which is the TypeScript, the definitely typed counterpart for Ruby gems. And then for Rails programmer, one of our committer, Poke, is creating and updating the RBS Rails, which is the signature for Ruby on Rails. And then we also provide the typeprof, which is the signature generator. So that typeprof use the technique named the abstract interpretation. So that scans your software and generates the prototype of signature for your applications. And then the typeprof also does a simple type inferences, and which is pretty good. And then we have Steep, which is the signature-based type analyzer. You can find those type errors using Steep, which is and then the typeprof also works as the LSP language server protocol server, so that you can use the typeprof to provide code completion based on types or something like that. By those and forthcoming tools, we can implement, we can get the comprehensive checks of comprehensive static type checks using typeprof and Steep. And it also works as a documentation by using LSP. And then better ID support we can provide using the typeprof. And we also working on improving the LSP server, which we can experience better and improve the productivity of the Ruby programming. which is very, very, very good. So as a result, we can get the benefit of static typing without declarations. So that, and I also has some kind of long-term vision. Tech trends comes goes. Remember that some 10, 15 years ago, the dynamic typing was pretty popular. So the next 15, 20 years later, the other type of programming will be popular. So tech trends like a pendulum, like comes and goes. Maybe in 10, 15, 20 years later, language with type declaration might become popular using those techniques. So that maybe we have better type inferences, and then maybe we can have better tools support like LSP, so that we don't have to struggle with the Turing complete complex type declarations. But the software and the supporting tools helps us to write the type safe, statically checked, but with the type declarations, writing better software in programming language like Ruby. So that I kind of foresee the future like that. That is, that is kind of hard decision. But I want Ruby to be one of those languages, the popular in, the 20 years later. So that nobody knows the future. Nobody knows the future. So that we cannot tell what kind of the future really comes. But I foresee that kind of future for the programming language and the typing. The mostly statically typed programming languages without type declarations. And it also has the flexibility of dynamic typing, and also has the conciseness and the power of the language like Ruby. But I want that language would be Ruby. But I try hard to make it real. That is the reason. That is the reason I'm not going to add type declarations to the language. I'm not going to blame other languages like a PHP and Python, but I believe, I made the right decision in 15 years. Yeah, trust my forecast. Or not. Myth number 3. Dynamic typing is slower. Compared to the statically typed programming languages, the dynamically typed programming languages like Ruby tends to be slower. Yeah, that's a fact. But remember, the statically typed programming language, the most of the statically typed language is natively compiled. The technology-wise, the virtual machine language like Java or JavaScript or even Ruby needs not to be slower than statically typed programming language. The V8, which is the Chrome JavaScript virtual machine, is a good example. The V8 is the virtual machine for JavaScript, which does not have any type declarations. But it's blazingly fast because it uses the runtime type informations, and with JIT compilers highly optimized, so that the V8 virtual machine is faster than most virtual machines. Sometimes which is faster than the JVM in some benchmarks, which is wonderful. Which proves we don't need to be statically typed with type declarations for to be faster for performance. The V8 does not require type declaration to be fast. So the JIT compiler using runtime type information, that means the JIT compiler can use more precise type information than the declarations. With the runtime type information is reality. When someone declare this array is the array of objects in the statically typed programming languages, but in reality, for most of the cases, they are the array of say symbols. But only a few instances it has some strings instead of symbols. In static type declarations, it should be the array of objects, because of its elements is either symbol or strings. But no, the runtime type information knows these are in most of the cases those elements are symbols, so that you can highly optimized version of the method for the array of symbols, and you can run small element check before calling that highly optimized version. By using those kind of techniques, the JIT compilers sometimes runs faster than ahead of time native compilers, native compiled code. So the performance is very important for Ruby as well. That's the reason the recent years we highly invested in the JIT compiler in Ruby. And this year 2022, so that we replaced the YJIT, which is the newer JIT compiler, in Rust. So that our new JIT compiler is written in Rust. Because to implement, to support ARM64 new instruction set architecture, the previous YJIT JIT compiler written in C is too complex and too difficult to manage. So the YJIT team, sponsored by the Shopify, tries to use the modern programming language to fight with the complexity, so that they replaced the Rust version of YJIT. Then a few months later, so that they come up with the ARM64 support for YJIT. So that now YJIT runs for the ARM64, which is Apple Silicon, or the CPU for the smartphones. And then later, the MJIT, the older version of the JIT compiler, was rewritten in Ruby this time, which is, we can hook those JIT compiler in Ruby to experiment the JIT compilers. Now we have two JIT compilers in Ruby. One is MJIT, which is the, some kind of the experiment testbed, and the YJIT, which is more performant and realistic. And as long as I've heard from the author, the development team of YJIT, there are plenty of room to improve performance in YJIT, so that we can expect the future performance improvement by YJIT. This is quite, sounds promising. Okay, and yeah, we are going to release Ruby 3.2 in several months and in Christmas, so that this Ruby 3.2, we are going to have the Ruby on WASM, which is WebAssembly. That means that we can run the full Ruby, not the subset of Ruby or the the alternative implementation of Ruby, and full-featured Ruby in browser, which is wonderful. The compiled version of Ruby compiled into the WebAssembly has several several megabytes. Like that is quite big, but considering the bandwidth of the recent internet, which is almost nothing, so that you don't have to worry about the burden of the data, so that you can run full Ruby in the browser. And memory allocation is improved. That we are going to introduce the shape, and we are going to introduce the compaction, the GC improvement, the memory allocation improvement, and we are trying to implement the MN threading, which is kind of like a go routine. So the M native threads and N over the N Ruby threads or actors. Well, we are going to have the data objects, and then we are going to have some syntax suggestions, which is better error information providing, and then we also provide the error highlight, which is the better error messages. We are also working on tools, and thanks to excellent tools, and we have RubyMine, SolarGraph, Robocop, Sobase, Steeps, and then many more tools, and most of them provided by the community. RubyMine is from the company, of course. And then we can do more. And then as a community, we encourage the improvement of the tools, because I also believe the future of the language, the productivity from the Ruby language can be provided by those improved tools. So that if you are trying to improve the tools or provide new tools for the better productivity of Ruby programming, and then if you feel you need help from us, the core community. So that please ask us. Yeah, we can improve, help you to improve the productivity of the Ruby language. Anyway, as a community, we will keep moving forward by improving the performance, providing better tools, including JIT compiler and those tools, and the static type checkers, many more things. And we have kept moving forward for last more than 20 years, almost 30 years. And we try to improve language for long time, and for the future, to create better world. And I will invite you to join us to improve the developer experience and improve your productivity together. This talk is sponsored by Salesforce.com, which is my sponsors, and an initial company in Japan, and I get many GitHub sponsors, and mostly we have help from Ruby community. Thank you all. Thank you for coming to the conferences, and I wish I can see you physically next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Matz. And if we are lucky, we will have a connection just about now. Let me check. Hi, Matz. Thank you so much, Matz, for the keynote. And we have quite a few questions from our participants, so let's get straight down to it. First one is from Luciano. What do you think about Sorbet and other community initiatives around type checking?
The core community mostly invest in the RBS, the Ruby signature, and the steep, because of we are not going to add any type annotation, even in some form of DSL. So for the future-wise, the Ruby community gradually move into the steep and signature RBS, but at the moment, Sorbet is much better both in performance and the completeness. So if they need more precise type checking, static type checking now, they are going to the Sorbet. But if you are going to invest in the future, so please try the Ruby signature.
The next question is the big regrets in life. Are there any language features that you regret introducing to Ruby?
I borrowed some features from Perl, especially some kind of very cryptic global variables. I regret them. In addition, I regret adding thread to the language at the very beginning of the language development, because at that time threading most of the computers have only one CPU at the time, so that we focused on some kind of the descriptiveness of algorithm or architecture, like the producer consumer model or something like that. But now we have many cores in a computer. So we mostly focus on the improving the performance by threads. But that kind of difference is kind of became burden for our implementation. But if we could provide something like Raptor at the beginning, so it would be much easier to make do concurrent programming in Ruby. So that is what I regret.
Okay, thank you. The next one has a nice touch of longevity, looking way to the future. How do you think developers can support Ruby so that it thrives for the next 100 years?
It is quite difficult to predict the future, even in 5 years. So that the preparing for the next 100 years is almost impossible. But at least the Ruby was beginning as a hobby of mine, my hobby at the beginning. But it's now community effort. So that we have to gather together and organize our effort as a community. That kind of the bookkeeping or the adding more powers from the community is the key for the survival for the next, say, 5 days.
Yeah, it is said by a famous Finnish politician, predicting is difficult, especially predicting the future. Thank you, Hannah, for the question. And next, again from Luciano, apart from type checking and speed, if applicable, which area do you see that Ruby should improve?
I think Ruby should be improved in the domain of interacting with the programmer, especially using some kind of the IDE, like the VS Code, code completion, or something like the GitHub Copilot or something like that. So that by help from the tools, we can be more productive using Ruby. But in the future, even without the type declaration, we can infer, the tools can be infer the type of the expression or variable, and the tools can do better code completion or maybe some better interaction with the programmers.
Thank you. Next one comes from Vesa Vanska. Do you have any idea how to encourage Ruby library authors to provide RBS types?
We are working on the gem RBS collection, which is kind of the counterpart of the definitive type in TypeScript. So the users can provide the signature information as a gem. The gem authors can easily import that RBS information from that repository, so that it is much easier for gem authors to adapt the signatures.
Thank you. Next, we have a personal question from Christian. What is an aspect of Ruby you currently enjoy working on?
I don't know. But I'm proud of inventing blocks in Ruby. That is the greatest invention in the language, I think.
There is a question also, if Ruby didn't exist, what other language would you pick nowadays?
Right now?
What would be the other language?
Probably, I'm not sure, but I like Julia pretty much. It has very unique aspect as a language, so that yeah, I like Julia. And what else? Maybe I'm working in say some kind of Lisp language, like Common Lisp or something.
Okay. From Simon, is contribution to the open source project a key to stay so positive after years of coding?
Probably. I think involving with the open source activity is to boost my joy of programming. Yeah, I have been working as a professional programmer for a long time, but the writing programs for the customers and writing software as a open source developer, so the latter is much more enjoyable, I think. But I have very higher motivation working with open source software. Maybe because of the freedom, I think.
There's one very specific. My colleague, CH colleagues teased me with their Visual Studio debugging capabilities. How long will it take until I can tease them back, and how can I help speed this up?
I'm not involved in any VS Code activity, so that I can say a little, but it's not that hard to write the VS Code plugin, and you have to write down the JavaScript though, and involving the most of them are open source, so that involving to the it and improve the plugins much easier than some kind of the priority the commercial software. So that yeah, and step in and work together.
And one final question. You talked about the 3.2, but what to expect from Ruby in the future? This question comes from Attila.
Three things, as always. And the one thing is the improving the performance, like by JIT compilers, and improving the memory management, and improving the virtual machine implementation. We are going to improve the Ruby, the performance always. And say the Ruby 3.0 is 3 times faster than Ruby 2.0, and we try to make a Ruby 3.x somewhere, probably 2-3 times faster than Ruby 3.0, so that now we are going to improve the performance, the one things. And at the same time, we are going to improve the productivity, performance of the development. And that is pretty much more important, because of the productivity is more important than the performance. If performance is most important, then we don't use Ruby. That we use some kind of the native compiling language like C++ or Rust or even Fortran. But we use Ruby because of the productivity. So the productivity is very much important. Second things. The third things is the combination of improving the performance and the better improving the productivity, I mean, and then along with the improve the performance, so that we can enjoy programming, so that we can do much trials and errors and you know enjoy programming. So the joy is, I think, most important for Ruby.
Great way to finish this interview. Matz, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.